The Fruitful Entrepreneurs podcast aims to increase the visibility of female leaders in business, inspire a limitless mindset to build your own blooming brand, and leave a positive impact with a purpose-driven business. Welcome to the Fruitful Entrepreneurs podcast. I'm your host, Shelley Tilbrook, and today I'm joined by female founder, Kate Save. Kate is an accredited practicing dietitian and exercise physiologist and is the CEO and co-founder of BeFit Foods. As an experienced clinical dietitian, exercise physiologist, and diabetes educator, Kate has been working with clients struggling with weight loss and weight management for more than 20 years. So welcome to the podcast, Kate. So nice to have you here today.
Thank you for inviting me, Shelley.
Yeah, wonderful. I look forward to learning more about what you do. So my first question was really around, you launched the business in 2015 online from a very tiny shared kitchen space, so I'm told.
Yes.
Tell us about those early days and the beginnings, and also a little bit about your background leading into starting the business.
Yeah, so I guess my passion for health and nutrition started with my own personal journey, and I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs start a similar way, but I was hospitalized in and out from the age of 2 till I was 20, and they could never work out what was wrong with me that was causing these severe tummy aches that would go for days, sometimes weeks, and I'd be profusely vomiting and unwell. And after about 6 years, they couldn't find anything. They just stopped looking. So it became part of my annual routine that I would get sick a couple of times a year. I'd be sent off to my grandparents' house until I was better, and then I'd go back to normal life. And by the time I got my license and I was 19, driving around and these attacks were happening a lot more frequently, I decided I'm going to go and see if anything's changed. Like, surely they could find something. And at the time, I was at university working 7 casual jobs, and I'd been at university at the day, been to work at a restaurant at the night, gone and worked at one of the bars at the casino overnight, drove back to where I live, which is an hour and a half away, waited for the radiology to open to have another scan. And after the scan, went straight back home to my parents' house to sleep for 7 hours. I wake up to the answering machine message just over and over, beep, beep, beep. There's 7 messages saying, we need to speak to Kate. It's urgent, Kate, you need to come in. And I thought, oh, thank heavens they found something. And anyway, so I go back in. They said, we need to do emergency surgery. We think you've got a tumor in your bile duct. And being a naive 19-year-old, I turned around and said, oh, it's my birthday in 2 weeks. I've already booked the party. I can't have the surgery today. And a few other bits and pieces that I was doing that as a 19-year-old, they were just so important to me at the time. My poor parents, now that I have 2 daughters, and I'd think, oh, I couldn't deal with that. And I guess in the end, my condition had always been blamed on food. So I'd always been told, oh, be careful what you're eating. You don't want to get sick. And I'm like, what is this poisonous food that I'm eating that's making me so sick? And it turns out it really wasn't the food. And yes, I did have lactose intolerance. And yes, I did have a bit of a sensitive tummy, but it really wasn't the cause of what was actually going on. So at that stage, I guess it led me to really study nutrition, and I knew food made me feel well. So food was my medicine. It wasn't my sickness. I just knew it was something else. And so I studied, became a dietitian, did all those things, and started my own clinic. And I had 11 medical centres we were doing nutrition services for, 3 private hospitals, some nursing homes. And after a few years, I just kept seeing the same thing. People knew what to do with their food. They just couldn't sustain it or keep going. They were too time poor. They wanted to be able to buy something off the shelf that would do the work for them, but they just really didn't have that tool to get started. So I decided, this is it. I'm going to make something that I can stand by, that I know will work. So it took a few years in the development, and what really made that development, I guess, so niche was I was working with a bariatric surgeon at the time, And when people were having weight loss surgery, the biggest challenge was to shrink their liver so that he could use a tool to move the liver to operate on the stomach. And the only way to do that was a very low calorie diet. And the global standard around the world is shakes and bars diets, like your slimming diets. And I thought, well, why are people drinking powder when they could eat food and still shrink their liver? And it just didn't make sense to me. However, the surgeon challenged me and said, well, that's a gold standard. You can't deviate unless you're certain. So I thought, how do I get certain about this? And that's how I created BeFit Food. So it shrinks the liver, but the side effect we didn't expect is it also, apart from getting rid of fatty liver, shrinks the pancreas and gets the fat off the pancreas. So then it helps with diabetes management. We saw in 7 days, diabetes measurements were dropping back into the non-diabetic levels, so showing 90% of blood sugar levels were back in the non-diabetic range. And that led the CSIRO to approach us and look at our study and ask us to create their range of meals. And that's really how we came to be.
How incredible. So it was really, driven by your own experience and, somewhat frustration or a problem that couldn't be solved by the experts to, I suppose, have you go in to investigate and find, a solution. That's really amazing as to how it grew, because I didn't know that background behind the birth of the brand. Yeah.
And I guess a bit that I didn't say was, because we had these 11 different clinics in the hospitals, we were seeing such a mixed bag of patients. And I ended up getting a heap of young teenagers with eating disorders, and all of them were tracking quite well. And all I could think is, if one of their parents bought a slimming shake in their house, how detrimental that would be to their mental health, and it would send them all the way backwards. So I knew that shouldn't be the only way that people could lose weight. You know what I mean? And so it just really, at my core, I wanted to teach people how to eat well with food to achieve the weight they need to achieve. And that's different for everyone. So it's not about weight loss to be a particular weight. It's about getting to a weight where your blood pressure is normal, your cholesterol is normal, your diabetes is managed, your fatty liver is gone, and you feel healthy. If you don't feel healthy, then you're probably not healthy. If you feel healthy, you're probably healthy. And that's really what matters. And so I just wanted to be able to say, you can eat a wholemeal beef lasagna or a pumpkin and chicken soup. You do not have to drink a chocolate shake.
Yeah, and it's incredible to think, like you say, most people will know what is healthy, but it's hard to follow.
Yeah.
We could all be healthy for a week, but it's hard to sustain. So really what you've done with BeFit Foods is just make it so accessible, easy, a no-brainer for people to stay on track. And I think that's fabulous.
And let them eat their favorite food. So I know when I was cooking at home, if I made a chili con carne, then it was going to be the chili con carne that had the 8 different vegetables in it, that had the 3 different types of beans. Of course, it had the meat and the cheese and the sour cream and the salsa and all those things. But it was really the things that I knew from my education, that you had to have your 5 serves of vegetables a day. So I jam-packed them into any meal I made, no matter what it was. So that's what BeFit Food is. It's how would a mum hide all the vegetables into their children's favorite meals, their cheesy beef meal, but actually make it truly healthy. And that was the challenge.
Yeah, fantastic. And who is your main audience now? Is it anyone wanting to get healthy, or do you have a particular niche that you serve?
Realistically, I wanted to create food that could do no harm. So in my opinion, there is nobody on the planet that cannot eat your 4 to 12 different vegetables per meal, a source of protein, whether it's meat, chicken, fish, or a vegetarian, vegan source, herbs and spices. So that is all our food is. So whether it's my children, whether it's my 81-year-old father, whether it's mums that are time poor, whether it's women that are breastfeeding, women that are pregnant, men that have gone from perhaps being on the tools to being more sedentary, whatever their need is to be healthier, the food can suit. However, the demographic that predominantly buys the food are people that are seeking weight loss, but the meals are building blocks. So the more of them you eat, the less weight you'll lose. The less of them you eat, the more weight you'll lose. And it's just finding what is your balance and what is your goal, and working with our team of dietitians. So we provide a complimentary service for that reason, that we know everyone has different goals, different activity levels, different starting weights, different preferences, and all of our meals are gluten-free except our wholemeal beef lasagna. And we've actually brought out a gluten-free lasagna now. So we have an entire gluten-free menu. So,
yeah, incredible. Thinking with your business hat on, in the early days, what things were foreign to you that got you out of your comfort zone that you wish you knew?
Oh,
You know now.
well, I'll give you the short version of this. I decided to go on Shark Tank because I needed money. I'd put in way too many tens of thousands into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and BeFit Food was not making any money, but the results we were getting were unbelievable. So I didn't want to give up on it, but I needed to make it profitable. So I went on Shark Tank to get the funding. Unfortunately, it's not like what you see on TV. I thought I was going to walk out with the check that I signed off on, but I didn't. So almost a year later, I still didn't have the check. The show had gone to air. We'd grown 1,500%. Overnight. I'd gone back into the warehouse because at this time I only had 5 staff, 4 of which were in the kitchen. One of them was at the warehouse where we had a little retail store. It wasn't a store, it was a freezer in the warehouse where people could buy food. And the phones were going off the hook. There was 7 little phone lines that I'd borrowed that plugged into internet cables, and I diverted them to a colleague that had a call center. And there was a kilometre line of cars along a road in Mornington that was just very unusual. I thought, where are they all going? They were coming to BeFit Food. They had all tried to buy BeFit Food online the night before when we were on Shark Tank. But because of the traffic, our website had crashed completely, and apparently it kept coming back online every 2 to 4 minutes. Yeah. We didn't realise. So we had thousands of orders and thousands of customers turning up, and no food after about 9:05 a.m. in the morning. So what did I have to learn? Well, I took on 3 warehouses at that point. I hired 63 staff in 4 weeks. I learned how to blow up the ampage in all 3 warehouses pretty much all at the same time, all the time. So I now know this one has a limit of 63 amps. The other one has a different limit. I learned how to hire trucks, but I can't drive trucks. So we ended up with a situation where we hired all these freezer trucks to transport the food and to store the food when we'd run out of storage, but they were running on diesel. Then they all ran out of diesel and I couldn't drive them down to the petrol station to fill them up again. I definitely don't know how to fix the back end of the website when it breaks. Lots and lots. I had no idea with a pallet. What is pallet configuration? I had no idea. Now I know. It's critical to the business.
Yeah. So like you say, lots of learning early on. I was actually going to ask what was the impact of being on Shark Tank, but it was literally
1,500% growth overnight. Yep. Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It was horrific for about 6 months because every time the website kept coming back, people were getting orders in, and every time we picked up the phone to try and call someone back, because we get about 100 messages a day from the call center, there was already somebody on the line with a new question. So no matter what we did, we weren't going to be able to fix the problem overnight. So it taught me a lot of patience and resilience and courage to face angry people. Most people on the other end of the line were going to be angry, and we offered everyone their money back, and 90% of people said, oh no, I'm happy to wait, I'm just annoyed I can't get it tomorrow or next week or whenever it is.
Well, they were ready to take action.
They were all ready. And look, we had a couple of people that said, if I don't get my order this week, I won't be able to get married. I've invested in this so that I can fit into my wedding dress. And if I don't fit, then my wedding's over. And, people had put everything into this decision. And no matter how many people I hired, we just couldn't meet the demand in such a short period of time. And eventually we caught up, but we broke every system we'd created, and then we rebuilt them really over the next 2 years.
Yeah, wow. I mean, I look at it as a great problem to have, that you so much demand, and obviously people that were very keen to try your product. But yes, I do appreciate that would have been a very challenging time as the business owner.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess my girls at the time, so 2017, it went to air. So they were 3 and 5. So I was just missing in action for months. And you try to be a mum and you try to be present, but everything is just going on around you. And all of a sudden, I've got 63 new staff that I'm trying to manage. And the biggest team I'd ever managed in my dietitian company was 23. So it was just so far out of my comfort zone. Yeah.
Absolutely. And those 63 staff, what sort of areas were they doing in the business? Was it
We did
food
everything
creation or?
ourselves. So the whole lot was, we manufactured the food, we stored the food, we had our own warehousing staff, we picked and packed the food, we printed the labels, we answered the phones, we developed the recipes, we sourced the ingredients, we sourced the packaging, everything.
Yeah. Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
In terms of what you were offering in the early days, has anything shifted or evolved to what you offer now, or is it very much still the same formula?
Really good question. What has changed during COVID, particularly for anyone listening who's in Melbourne, when we had our 2 years of unexpected lockdown, given 70% of our clients were really Victorian based, because they always say you're stronger in your home state. So we deliver nationally to every state in Australia except the Northern Territory. It's just very difficult to for logistics there. But the Victorians were in such a poor, fragile state, as we all know, that you couldn't market to people you should invest in your health when they've lost their businesses, they've lost their jobs, their kids aren't at school. Like, it was just not a good time for our type of home delivered meal service. Whereas we saw the likes of, the gourmet services and the wine boxes and the cheese boxes and the sourdough grow, but investing in health at a point when it just was futile. It wasn't going to work. So we spent 2 years redeveloping the flavors of all the meals. So the formulations were the same, but we hired a Michelin hat chef to help us not change the macros or the components, but help us with the flavors, with the herbs and spices, the size of the dice of the vegetable, the way that the meat was cooked, the duration of the cooking period. And that really enhanced the meals. So we used to get at the start quite a few complaints about the food being mushy or not very tasty, whereas now we rarely would get a complaint about the food. If anything, people go, wow, I can't believe this is actually healthy, which is a great thing to hear, because you want your kids to eat vegetables, so you're trying to make them tasty, but you can't put sugar in. They're all low sodium meals. You can't put fillers in, so you can't just fill people up with pasta and rice and make their happy hormones in their brain go crazy. You've got to put the vegetables and meat in and find a way with natural ingredients to get that right profile. And that was something that we really improved over that period. So
yeah, great. Yeah, well, I always, for some it was a growth opportunity, and for some it was like develop your existing business. So I think, you had to sort of go one way or the other, keep sane.
Yes.
And hopefully might have had a bit of a spike post-COVID with everyone had put on weight.
It was a very slow spike, only because we're allowed out so we could go to restaurants again. So I think restaurants and socializing came first. So it was a real lag before people went, okay, I've seen all my friends now, I've been to all the new restaurants, and now I'm ready to invest in my health. So it was probably 3 years of us not really being able to go forward. And we had been accelerating every single year, huge growth. But I think now there is a real focus on health post-COVID, that everybody has taken a step back. They have slowed down at some point in time, then sped up again and went, you know what, time is so valuable. If I don't have to spend an hour and a half food shopping, preparing the meal, cleaning up, and I can outsource that for $13 a meal, then that value is there again. Whereas there was a point in time where people had more time to cook and they said, no, I love cooking. I want to cook. And I would like to cook too. I'm just not home to do it a lot of the time. So my daughters have just popped in earlier, and they go to competition gymnastics, and they've just popped in. One had the cheesy beef and vegetable ragu, and the other had the Italian beef meatballs. And you know, to know that I feel like I sort of fed them. They're my recipes, but hey, I just didn't cook them this time. I just heated them, and you know, they've got their veggies, they've got their protein, they're off to gymnastics, and yeah, just each to their own.
Fantastic. You've won a plethora of awards. Telstra Business of the Year. You've been on the top 30 for Australian Financial Review Fast Starters. What are the statistics that you're most proud of? Obviously, to win those awards, that, you know, there's got to be a great story behind with statistics. So yeah, I'm interested to hear what impact you're really proud of.
The biggest thing for us was really building a team that believed in the vision and following that through. So living and breathing, not just the values of what we were selling in the product, but the values of the company being, you are here for the love of it. That is our number one value, that if you do not absolutely love this and this isn't your dream job, then follow your inner instinct and your core and do what you love. So it means we've got a happy team that are doing, you know, what works for them best. And I think all of those awards were time for the team to shine. So we all went along to, whether it was the casino at Melbourne, or we went to Sydney for another one, and we all sat at the big tables, got dressed up in gowns and celebrated. And that was the biggest achievement out of all of it. It's nice to win, but it's nice to sit back just for 2 hours and go, wow, look at this, look at what we're doing together. And that's the biggest highlight, I think, because you don't stop and do that in the business. You just bang, bang, bang.
Yeah. I always say start with the end in mind, but did you start thinking you would ever be this successful?
Never. And I actually had no intention of starting a food company other than the threat of, if you don't make the food, then the patients have to go on shakes. That was the threat from the medical industry, that the global standard for bariatrics is to put them on a VLCD, which is traditionally a shakes diet. And I just knew it couldn't be good habit forming because I'd seen the children with eating disorders. It wasn't good role modeling. I'd never sit at the table and do that as a parent in front of teenage daughters type thing. And I also knew that it mustn't be good for the gut microbiome, and which we've learnt now, the only thing that we know keeps us living beyond 100 without disease is plant-based foods, and they are just not in the powders. So you've got to eat the vegetables, the salads, the fruits, and you will live longer. And that was what I was so passionate about.
Oh, it's great. It's a great story and a great message. I'm curious about, you did a retail expansion in 2021. Tell us a little bit about what that process involved and which retail outlets that you are in.
Yeah, so we have just secured our third year in a row in 750 Woolworths stores, which literally this week. So it was just a deep breath after that, because for us, we exist so that the people who need us most can access the program. And an example of this, I got a text message from a girl the other day that I've only worked with for 28 days. We're making a television documentary at the moment, actually. And she wanted to fit into her wedding dress, and she'd ordered her dress in February. It didn't fit. She found that because it didn't fit, all these negative thoughts and negative behaviors were coming in, and more binge eating and things that she didn't want to do because it felt so hard. And she sent me the most beautiful message one day at her hens, just saying how she never thought she would get here. She can't believe that she actually loves herself again, like all in that vein of, I had completely given up on myself. and I can't believe I'd given up on myself. And it is so simple. And those feelings, the customers that walk in, customers on the phone, I'm sitting in our retail store now, they tell us that every day. So when you're hearing that all the time, we know that it is changing lives, and not just, scales or fitting into a dress, but people literally give up on themselves. They just think it's not worth it anymore, and they beat themselves up about something that really doesn't matter that much. They get caught up on the things that don't matter, and then they start feeling good because they put the good stuff in. If you nourish yourself, you actually feel good immediately. It doesn't matter if the scales change or don't change. When you're eating well, you have more energy and you feel positive, and that's the gut brain connection working, and that the happy hormones there. And that's, I think, the core of why we do what we do.
Yeah, well, yeah, like you say, whether it's exercise or whether it's healthy eating, the byproduct might be that you lose weight, but it's actually that you feel better.
Yeah,
And I think the message has been reversed or the wrong way for quite a while. Like it was all been directed on, losing weight, but really you'll just feel better. So
losing weight means nothing if you don't feel better. And we saw this with weight loss surgery. Often people that have weight loss surgery lose huge amounts of weight, and they go, but I'm not happy. Why aren't I happy? I thought I would be happy. They're not necessarily connected. You have to feel better about yourself. It doesn't matter what that is. And, that could just be your skin's a bit clearer, your hair's a bit more shiny, your eyes are brighter, you don't have bags under your eyes because you're sleeping better. It's you're not snoring all night. And all those little things are really why we think it's our weight, but really it's just our energy and the way we feel about ourselves.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. In terms of, you successfully bought out another shareholder in the business and became the sole owner of BeFit Foods. So how did that change your processes as a business owner going forwards as solo? Was there a lot more courage required on your own part?
Definitely, because you really have to back yourself. You can't turn around when things are not going well and ask for help. You really have to go, I've got to find a way, and I can do this on my own. And that's where the team become more critical, because you need the team to believe in what you're doing and that it's making a difference. Otherwise, it's quite futile. That none of us, as much as we say, like, we change our diet for our weight, none of us really work just for the money. It's what you do with the money. It's the lifestyle. It's the freedom, or whatever makes you happy that you do with that money. So the same thing in the business. It's certainly not for the money. It's not. So it has to be bigger for everybody involved to actually believe that we're making a difference. So,
yeah, great. I read that you believe a positive attitude to food, balanced approach to nutrition is the critical factor for overall health and happiness. How important do you think good nutrition is for a busy female business owner?
Well, I just know right now, if you are not nourished, you start to get iron deficiency, and then you're tired all the time. You get zinc deficiency and your immune system runs down. Your B vitamin levels are low and your energy is low. When all of those things start to decline, your mood is low, and then you lose the passion for your business. So there's nothing more important than fueling your body. If you're going to stop and bother to put petrol in your car, then put fuel into your body, and the right sort of fuel. So you wouldn't go and put, I don't know, apple juice in the car. You put petrol in the car, no matter how expensive it is. If you want to drive, you need to put the right fuel in. And the same thing with your body, that you need to find out what the best fuel is for you and not sacrifice that, because at the end of the day, you can dispose of a car, but you can't dispose of your body. You are actually stuck in your body for your entire life. And I do think people forget that, the way they abuse their bodies. I'm like, you're going to wake up with this body 10 years later, and all you've done is eat or drink or smoke or not exercise or stress to the point where your hair's falling out. What do you think will be left in 10 years' time?
Absolutely. Do you have some either nutrition tips or healthy tips to give other business owners so that they can maintain a healthy routine when they've got such a busy, demanding lifestyle?
Take it back to basics. If they have children, what would you want on your children's plate? What would make you so happy if they just ate that? And that is the best way to think about it. We know what is good for us. And I think, particularly in our generation, I'm assuming you're similar age-ish to me,
Yep.
our parents would put the meat and vegetables in front of us or whatever the meal was, and you had to finish the meal. You will not leaving the table without eating your vegetables. So eat your vegetables. Go back to that discipline. That is the only thing that really matters. Most of us will get enough protein without having to try so hard. If you eat some sort of meat or chicken or fish product or eggs or dairy, you're going to get enough protein. You probably don't have to worry as the number one thing, whereas a lot of people try and put the focus on getting enough protein, or if they're keto, just eating fat. But that stuff is tip of the iceberg. That really doesn't matter. What you do need to do is have a diet based on plant-based foods, and then everything else in moderation. And that means that if you do want a glass of wine or your cheese or your after five platter, you can have that because you're nourished first, which means your body will, in my opinion, it almost rejects what it doesn't need. You can compensate to a certain extent. If you eat well 90% of the time, literally the other 10% does not matter. But if you don't eat well 90% of the time and it's more 50, 60, 70, then you're probably missing something over time and it will eventually catch up.
Yeah, no, that's great. And what's next for BeFit Foods? Is there anything you're developing or working on at the moment? Tell us a little bit.
Chemist Warehouse project is our biggest one. So we have trialed 3 stores initially. We've gone 5th, 6th store. So I was just in New South Wales this week launching the Campbellfield store, which is a huge newer Chemist Warehouse with Ultra Beauty. And because of our trademark, food as the first medicine, it really lends itself to helping people in that pharmacy situation when they're getting a script actually consider, okay, well, I'm treating the symptom with the medication. How do I treat the cause? How do I fix the underlying problem? And yes, you need the medication to manage the symptoms so you can get through the condition. But without food being that first foundation, the medication will stop working eventually, or you'll have to change and keep increasing the doses, and you'll get sicker and sicker if you don't get that foundation piece right. So between all of our retailers, with the Woolworths giving access to all Australians because of their locations, Richies and IGAs for the smaller grocers where people don't have access to the big ones, and then with the pharmacies, it's a different way that people are shopping and different consumers we can reach. But the more people we can reach, we can stop that verbiage around, I can't do this, I've given up on myself. It really is that easy. It probably only takes 2 to 3 days for someone to start feeling 90% better. And then you go through that process over 2 weeks and you guaranteed you will feel 100% better at that point. And that's just what our customers are saying. That's, I must say, I'm used to feeling good probably 100% of the time. So when I come across people that are tired all the time or don't sleep well or have low energy or low mood, immediately I go, well, you can fix that. It's a once you know how good it feels, it becomes easier to do it. So I don't stop doing it. I don't mean like it's Friday night. I'm certainly going to go have a glass of red wine, have my little cheese platter and do all those things. But I have eaten all of the good food today, which gives my body the fuel to process the rubbish and start all over again tomorrow.
Oh, that's terrific. And how can people find you or BeFit Foods?
Yeah, go to befitfood.com.au for the website to have a look around, or our Instagram, BeFitFood Australia, and my LinkedIn, Kate Save on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for our chat today. I loved hearing about the story and how the brand was born, because I think that's, really amazing. And I'm certainly a big believer in, plant-based nutrition and plant-based, I suppose, medicine in a way, because it really has made a big impact on my life and my family. So, yeah.
Oh, good. And just for anyone listening, we're not vegan or vegetarian. We just advocate for more plant-based foods wherever we can. It's each to their own. If they want to be exclusively plant, they can do that, but it's a dedicated choice. You have to really commit to that every decision every day. So each to their own.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Kate. And yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Shelley. Bye.